When most people hear the word Vikings, they immediately think of fierce warriors charging into battle, ships filled with raiders crossing the seas, and villages being burned down. Popular culture has painted the Viking Age as one of the most brutal, violent, and bloody periods in history. But the truth is much more surprising. The Viking Age, which lasted roughly from the late 8th century to the 11th century, was not defined only by war and raiding. In fact, much of Viking life was peaceful, structured, and deeply connected to farming, trade, and family life. The more historians uncover about the Vikings, the clearer it becomes that their world was far more balanced than the stories of endless bloodshed suggest. While the raids across Europe certainly happened and made a huge impression on the people who were attacked, these raids were just a small part of Viking activity. The majority of Norse people were not warriors setting out on longships. They were farmers, craftsmen, traders, and settlers. Most of their time was spent working the land, growing crops like barley, oats, and rye, raising animals such as cattle, sheep, and goats, and fishing in the surrounding waters. Farming was the backbone of Viking society, and survival depended on maintaining stable communities. The image of the Viking as a constant raider ignores how important peaceful trade was to their world. Vikings built extensive trade networks that stretched from Scandinavia to the Middle East. They exchanged furs, amber, and iron for silver, silk, spices, and glassware. Archaeological finds show us that Vikings were connected to the great trading cities of their time, from Constantinople to Baghdad. These peaceful interactions shaped the Viking Age just as much as the occasional raid. Another overlooked aspect of Viking life was their system of law and governance. Vikings were not chaotic savages who lived without rules. Instead, they developed strong legal traditions and gatherings known as things, which were assemblies where disputes were settled, laws were made, and decisions were voted on by the community. In many ways, this early form of democracy gave people a voice and helped keep society organized and relatively peaceful. Conflicts were often resolved not with violence but through fines, compensation, or agreements that maintained harmony in the community. The role of family and social bonds in Viking culture also shows us a side of peace and stability. Families worked together to maintain farms and households. Kinship ties were vital, and communities relied on cooperation. Marriage alliances strengthened political and social stability. Women in Viking society held more rights than in many other parts of medieval Europe, including the ability to own property and seek divorce. This balance in family and community life created a strong foundation for daily peace. It is also important to understand how the reputation of the Vikings as bloodthirsty savages was shaped by their enemies. Many of the written records we have about Vikings come from Christian monks who witnessed raids on their monasteries. Naturally, they described these attacks in the most terrifying terms possible. To those communities, the sudden appearance of longships on the horizon was shocking and devastating. But these accounts represent only one side of the story and often exaggerate the violence, leaving out the quieter realities of Viking society. In fact, many Vikings were more interested in settling new lands than raiding them. They established farms in Iceland, Greenland, and even briefly in North America. These settlements required long-term planning, cooperation, and peaceful coexistence within their own groups and sometimes with local populations. Archaeology shows evidence of thriving farming communities in these new lands, where daily life was focused more on survival and prosperity than on constant war. Religion and culture also encouraged peace in ways that are often overlooked. The Norse gods were associated with war, but also with fertility, farming, and community well-being. Festivals, feasts, and religious rituals brought people together, creating bonds that strengthened society. Storytelling, art, and craftsmanship flourished in Viking culture, proving that creativity and beauty were just as important as bravery in battle. So why do we still think of Vikings as nothing but raiders? Part of the reason is that violence is more memorable and dramatic. Raids left a lasting mark on European history and were written about extensively by those who suffered from them. Over time, these stories became the defining image of the Vikings. Modern media, from TV shows to movies, has only reinforced this picture, focusing on battles and bloodshed while ignoring the everyday lives of farmers, traders, and families. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe for more fascinating historical insights. What other historical events do you think had unexpected consequences? Let us know in the comments below.